my best Tom Waits. Ready, set, here comes the scary part. Here comes the scary. Good evening, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. The Greenkill Gallery presents Calling All Poets. For the second year in a row, we are here every second Thursday, doing this live stream thing, and now actually letting some live people into the room. Give yourselves a hand for coming out tonight. That only sounded like there were 2 or 3 people in the room. There's a heck of a lot more. Come on, come on, come on, come on. There you go. Everybody's been saying how I can't wait to get out, can't wait to get out, and then all you get is, no, that's not how it works. My name is Mike Jakovic. I will be your host for this evening. Calling All Poets has been around for 23 years. We've been doing this for 2 every second Thursday. We're going to present 4 readers tonight. Ruth Danon, Raphael Kosek, Guy Reed, and Stephanie Russell. If I say Miller, I'm sorry. Miller just keeps running off my tongue. I don't know why. We do this every second Thursday starting at 7 p.m. It's a live stream, and since August, we've been allowing a live audience in. We will continue doing this into next year also. I want to thank Dave Shell for this beautiful space, for all the high definition equipment. If you are an artist of any stripe, of any discipline, you belong here at the Greenkill Gallery. It's a beautiful space. Dave has opened it up to everybody. It's online, it's everywhere. So please come and see Dave, and don't be hesitant to come on out. So let's get down to business. And our first reader for the evening will be Ruth Danon. She is the author of poetry collections Word Has It from the Rala series 2018, Limitless Tiny Boat, Blaze Vox 2015, Triangulation from a Known Point, North Star Line 1990, a chapbook Living with the Firemen, Ziesing Brothers 1980, and a book of literary criticism, Work in the English Novel from Crookhelm 1985, which was reissued by Routledge in 2021. Her poetry has appeared in a number of anthologies, including Eternal Snow, Resist Much, Obey Little, Noon, an anthology of short poems, CAP's 20th anniversary anthology. Hey, I know that one. Her work was selected by Robert Creeley for Best American Poetry in 2002. Her prose and poetry have appeared in the Florida Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Post Road, Versal, Mead, Bomb, the Paris Review, Fence, the Boston Review, Barrow Street, and many other publications both here and abroad. She has been a fellow at the Ragdale Foundation, the Corporation of Yaddo, the Aura Lerman Foundation, and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. For 23 years, she taught in the creative and exploratory writing programs that she directed for the School of Professional Studies at New York University, and was founding director of their summer intensive creative writing workshop from 1999 to 2016. She is the founder of Live Writing, a project for the reading, writing, and performance of poetry, which has been operating since 2018. Before the pandemic, she curated the Spring Street Reading Series for the Atlas Studios in Newburgh, New York. She lives in Beacon and teaches through Live Writing and New York Writers Workshop. A friend of mine for a while now, Ruth Danon.
I can't see you, which is a little strange. Welcome, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Those of you who are somewhere listening to this on live streaming, thank you for coming. I'm very happy to be here, very happy to be reading live. This is an exciting night for me. I'm going to be reading entirely new work. I had a whole program planned with all sorts of old work, and then I asked a friend who was in the audience, what should I read? And she told me what to do, so I'm doing what I'm told. And I canceled everything I thought to do. So the other thing that's exciting is that I just yesterday received a contract from Nirala for my next book that will be my 4th full-length book of poetry that will come out in 2023. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to read sort of 2 clusters of poems. The first group of poems which are related, they're all related to one another, are about spies. I happen to have become obsessed with spies after many years too late. I discovered The Americans, that wonderful series. And I did nothing for weeks except watch, episodes of The Americans. And the result was a series of poems. I have to say, these are spies in aggregate. One of the rules of this series of poems is that they are never individual spies. They're always in aggregate. There's always more than one spy. And the other thing I tried to do was to have each of them have a slightly different form, which I did not succeed in 100%, but you'll see that there are different forms in these poems. So, spies in aggregate. Can you hear me all right? I'm hearable? Okay, good. All right. Spies late at night. 1. They sleep the way we do. They dream the way we do. Sometimes they laugh. It's funny when a spy laughs. There's always a chance that heavy irony seeps in between the heavy breathing. I feel sorry for spies. They work so hard and are so tired of working the dead jobs. My mother was no spy, but she worked hard, and sometimes because of her work, she was a doctor, she left on call in the middle of the night. It was strange when she left and stranger when she came home. She had her life and I had mine. Sometimes our lives met on a small pad of paper placed next to the black telephone on the table by the stairs. The word Thorazine was printed at the top edge of each clean page. While she'd been on call, the phone would ring. I'd take messages and write them down on that white pad from the drug company. I was careful to be accurate. There's been a death on Ward 22, I might write, already learning the difficult art of delivering bad news. Spies at night. Tonight the spies are out in the cold. This is not, believe me, a literary illusion. I mean a literal fact. I mean exactly that. The spies are sitting bundled up in the front seat of a parked car on a quiet street. They can't turn on the engine, so they can't turn up the heat. They tug their woolly scarves around their necks. They are there, poor spies, to see and not be seen. So they wait in the dark. For what? Who knows? We don't. That's why they are the spies, and we foolish bystanders, are not. The thing is, with spies, there is never a moment when they are not spies. By the river, in the train car, on the sidewalk, in the bathtub, at the grocer, when the clock strikes, after hours, before the sunrise, with a lover, with their children, smiling, crying, always they are spies. And your challenge, dear audience, is to figure out whether the spies I'm talking about are really spies. The seduction of spies. Stupid spies never know that they are becoming spies. They fall into spying the way a branch falls into a river. Someone asks a question, and the stupid about-to-be spy answers, and then it's off to the races from that point on. The stupid spy is charmed by the moon, by any hint of mystery and obfuscation. It is never about the secrets or the money. It is all about the elaborate machinery of subterfuge. The spy apprehends the leaf that falls from the oak in the yard. It carries all the messages anyone needs. But the spy, preoccupied with gravity, has forgotten to pick up the leaf, yellow and finely veined. For months I went around saying, I love the spies. The spies drink tea in the afternoon. Late, their small hands grip fat mugs. Poor dears, they want so much as the dark comes on to hold a little heat. Blank day, without permission, spread against the blank wall. No mission, no meaning. In the rug formatted room, they say nothing, need to say nothing. They want and know they want some lump sugar for their tea. Now, the spies, of course, live in a country that is not their own. And they have to adapt to the foreign country. So, in reading about spies, I happened upon a 1940s manual for Russian spies. And these were spies who were going to be planted in Finland. And they needed to learn how to behave in Finland. So they needed to learn how to use their napkins, how to use their forks, how to shake or not shake hands. It was very complex. So the spies in this poem are taking a quiz because they had to know things. So these spies are taking a quiz. When leaving home, you must A, carry your secrets, B, carry your infants, C, carry your guns. When eating in a restaurant, you must A, tip the waiter generously, B, write on a napkin invisibly, C, wear your guns prominently. When visiting a friend for dinner, you must A, bring a bar of bitter chocolate, B, compliment the host and hostess, C, put your guns on the table. When asked where you live, say A, the land of the free and the home of the brave, B, the land of Hanali, C, the land of open carry. Who says politics can't be funny? Of course, the spies are only allowed to speak in the language where they live, but they know more languages than that. Polyglot spies. The spies try hard to stay under cover. They speak, skilled in alien tongues, but then, asleep in dreams, they start to number words they learned first to render when so much younger. At such moments, it seems to me, spies are tender. It seems at times they want their mothers. I'm going to skip one. Spies are anxious. The anxiety of spies. Of course, things go wrong. The power goes out. The tire explodes on the narrow bridge. The ice melts in the freezer. Everything domestic requires intervention in complex ways that matter more than the loss of empire. That's hard to explain to Control, who lives so far away and thrives on envy. Now the milk is freezing on the porch. The just purchased bananas are overripe. The morning when flesh seemed pliant and sweet is gone. It's hard truth now, all facts and competence. Call the garage, the repairman. Ignore the spoiled food, the sullen day. Just get on with it. Stop fretting, get busy. Why I love the spies. You must understand, I love these spies, hapless as they are. Their kitchens are perfect. Their children go to school carrying tiny backpacks. They wait for orders, and when the phone rings, they have stupid conversations with serious men who tell them that the office is topsy turvy. That means all hell is breaking loose. Yes, they have an office. Yes, they impose slang. In the perfect kitchen, their children explain baseball. Spies find this hilarious. So hard for them to care about an inning when they know this world is on its way out. Spies think they can save the world. Foolish. They cannot even save themselves. And of course, they get arrested, and of course, they get deported. And this is the end for the spies. The end. Of course, I will miss them. I watched them for so long, knew their lives more than I knew my own. I watched from the car, by the street lamp, near a bench in the park. Silly birds. At times, I hid in the backyard near the gate. I'd wait for them to burn their words. Some nights in the char, I'd find scraps with words still plain, random and monosyllabic, those words named a life much like my own. Born, sad, see, live, die, I. The Spies. All right. Okay, so I do have this new book coming out. The title of the book is Turn Up the Heat, as my husband explained to someone here tonight, to Mike, I think. I'm always cold. So I wrote a book called Turn Up the Heat. But tonight I'm not going to be reading so much about heat, I'm going to be reading about gambling. And part of this book takes place in Sardinia, part of this book takes place in the past, part of it takes place in the present. Part of the book takes place in the past, the present takes place in Sardinia, in New York. It's a big jumble of things. So in this first poem, the only thing you need to know is that Galtelli and Orosei are towns in Sardinia. The gamble. If you find me face flat down on the road between Galtelli and Orosei, do not assume I require either prayer or pity. Rather, know that at the feast of St. Anthony, I gambled on the wrong saint. I was betting on the saint of beautiful lost things when I should have known that it was the hermit who tamed the devil with stick and pig. I should have named my own. All night fires insist and burn, and white ash covers the ground. Where there was sun, now shadow. And when they strip cork from the bottom of the tree, trust it, the bark grows back. So there were two St. Anthony's, and the one I got wrong was, I thought it was St. Anthony of Padua, who is the patron saint of lost things, but actually there is another St. Anthony of Egypt, who was the one who was a hermit and tamed the devil. And in Sardinia, on his name day, they have huge fires, just enormous fires. Okay, this poem is called All Bets Off. It's another political poem. Calculating the odds has become the new sport, as if a new sport were needed. What might be the likelihood of something changing, the weather, for instance, or discontent? The drain in the bathtub has stopped working. No way to hold the water in the tub, so everything drains away. At least it drains, since the odds were that if something went wrong, it would go the other way, and the tub would stay full of scummy water, getting colder by the minute. Sometimes one can beat the odds. In a larger context, we resort to hope, because calculation, reflected upon, becomes too risky. What can we do when the guilty party eats the evidence, tearing paper into tiny pieces, then stuffing those pieces into his filthy mouth? What were the odds of that? Odd it was indeed, but really, can we put such actions into any calculation of outcomes? Well, there was an outcome. A door, after all, after January 6th, 2021. Because it's a cold night, and because in spite of all that interferes with rational thought, I know, nonetheless, that my mind is right. What I mean is I am afraid. What I mean is I would be a fool not to be. 2. Ache between the shoulders, ache in the knee, every ache an intrusion, every intrusion a reminder. It's so easy to break down a door. You just kick and you don't stop, and then the door breaks. 3. Because it is night and cold, because my mind is right, because I am afraid, because someone breaks down a door, because I knew this before, because of the wonderful whiz he was, there is nothing now I can explain.
What's the idea about walking, sir? Are you the center of the freaking show or the lady? You're pissing me off, man.
How we live now. I have heard lately, more than once, of men falling out of their beds. Sometimes they hurt themselves falling out of bed and so resort to sleeping on the floor. And I have heard as well that the women living with the men who fall out of their beds are forced to sleep alone because the force that forces these men to fall out of their beds is dangerous to the women they sleep with. I have heard lately of women eating dinner alone because the men who fall out of their beds and sleep on the floor go to sleep very early and so are not awake when the women are hungry. Don't you think these are strange times? We are wearing our masks indoors. When the women eat alone, they become particular. The place setting just so, the candles lit, one glass of wine, one piece of chocolate to end the meal. This is how we live now. This is what we have come to. I'm going to stop there. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ruth. Ruth Danon. I want to welcome the couple folks who joined in a little late. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our next reader is Raphael Kosek. Her latest book of poetry, Harmless Encounters, won the 2021 Jesse Bryce Niles Chapbook Contest. American Mythology, a finalist at Brick Road Poetry Press, and released in 2019. Rough Grace won the 2014 Concrete Wolf Chapbook Contest. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals such as, oh wait, I know what the problem is. I'm reading with the wrong glasses. Damn it. I mean, I've known this lady for a million years. It's like, why is it all of a sudden different? Raphael Kosek's latest book of poetry, Harmless Encounters, won the 2021 Jesse Bryce Niles Chapbook Contest. American Mythology, a finalist at Brick Road Poetry Press, was released in 2019. Rough Grace won the 2014 Concrete Wolf Chapbook Contest. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals such as Southern Humanities Review and Poetry East, and have been nominated for Pushcart Prizes. She served as a 2019-2020 Dutchess County, New York Poet Laureate, where she teaches at Dutchess Community College. You can find out more about her at www.raphaelkosek.com. A friend of mine, a friend of Calling All Poets, a friend of Greenkill Gallery, Raphael Kosek.
Thank you, Mike and Caps, for the place and the introduction and for being who you are. And I'm so thrilled to read with such wonderful poets tonight. So that's a pleasure. I'm going to read some new poems. This is coming out in Sequestrum in the spring. It's called The Charm. You hear the soft spooning of the rain before you know it to be rain. Your mind cannot quiet. You understand how the cypress trees tormented Van Gogh with their beauty, even as he loved them, while the sky above bled blue with a sharp and willful clarity. Some nights are spent numbering the dead, who still murmur and stir in the air around you. Send them on their way, but leave the door open. They may share their secrets with you if you don't seem too hungry. For some, solace comes when the trees turn ashen pink with the flush of morning, and the ordinariness of starlings brighten the dogwood with noisy, vicarious life. For you, it is hard excavation in a rocky field where your words prove a blunt shovel. Dig deep, lean in. The bitter root you unearth will keep you like a charm. Kind of what we do, and a little shout out to Seamus Haney's Digging. Here's a poem for November. It's called Ode to My Father in November. Bare November trees stand tall and sway in the weather change, wind coming through silent and grave, like the ghosts of the fathers, who never had anything much to say, unlike the mothers who prattled us down, pecking away at the person hiding beneath our skins. November, November, my song is to you, and I've always been trying to understand why you are my favorite, and I light upon this. You remind us, with your funk of rotting leaves and newly open sky, that we are here to be our most real selves. You cannot bluff to November in the chatter of spring. I have never done you justice, Father, like November's expiring sweetness, catching at me with soon-to-be-absent grace, the sky dissipating into a rage of color before darkness reminds me how resounding silence can be, like your stillness, Father, that never needed speaking. And this is a poem about a musical piece, actually two. A favorite current musician of mine, John Baptiste, has a piece called Chopinesque, where he riffs his sort of blues and jazz on a Chopin nocturne, and I love it. So this is called Listening to John Baptiste Chopinesque. One good note is all you need to begin, because of course it will be followed after its little breath by another, either up or down, and before you know it, the tree will flower and bud and shake its head of foliage in full bloom, and the day will spin its hours of tea or coffee, then the quiet sob of the outdoors intruding with its cantable of soft air, moist and green. And you will remember that moment, which is now in the past, when you heard that first stirring note and remarked how one thing leads to another until the moon hangs heavy in the sky and night floods all the windows, and another day swishes past, like a woman leaving the room, her long skirt brushing the floor, her scent lingering in nocturnal airs. And before you know it, you want to be the song when it is done, the piano sleeping in the dark shade of its deep pool, cool and still and oh so far away. And here's a poem called Bluebirds, which I've been sending out. It's about as political as I get, I think. Bluebirds. The air is wet with moist heat on this clouded late May day. I'm not sure if it's welcoming or not. If I had to say, I think it tastes like grief, even though the birds are going about their business as usual, and my heart still beats. The bluebird house in the backyard remains empty after my beloved and I tacitly agreed to purge the wren's 6 tiny brown eggs in her lovingly piled pyramid of twigs, hoping for the brighter beauties. I watched his hand clasp the nest and toss it into the woods. Earlier this week, a child smeared herself with another's blood to avoid the gunman's ire. I think it is going to rain if it makes its mind up, and there will be no bluebirds in this house of death. And I'll read a little bit from, let's see. I write a lot of ekphrastic poetry, and this one is from a painting by Edward Hopper called Route 6, Eastham, 1941. How perfectly Hopper's painting reveals the ironic process of making art and writing poems. His Route 6 passes by the house which stands at the center, the usual place of honor, but the looming road takes us past the inconsequence of the lives lived inside the house, where people mate and quarrel, cook and love. Someone struggles to make a choice. Someone has died there. Someone has left there for another there, another life entirely. And Hopper's highway draws the eye away from the house and past it into a further life unknown to the lives within the house. One only longed for or imagined by the artist, the writer, who writes and paints around the actual living or ignores it entirely. Creation is a road bypassing the real into the vacant spaces where the telephone poles lead, where the clouds shift and stagger. Here is the longing that birthed the painting, the poem. It drifts like smoke, blooms like blood. The solemn white house shadowed by violet and a darkly thickened tree. Because we cannot know anything sure, only the hum of the empty road, going and going and going. I'll read some poems from my most recent book, Harmless Encounters. The title poem, Harmless Encounters. I dreamt fat flakes of snow falling thickly in summer. I dreamt I wore a bridal gown while cleaning the house as the guests arrived. I dreamt I kissed an old friend, long dead, on the lips and felt nothing. I turn and turn in this world that rings in my ears and claims me with its faraway words, scattered, half heard, in a field blonde with sun, bleary with bird song. Among the leaves shimmying in a scant breeze against an immortal blue, something feels so familiar, I almost call out, I know you, I am here. But it skitters away like a fish, precise and fleet, through the current of the hours, and I am once again only myself. Signs and symbols. Like the hawk meticulously dismantling the feathered body of a flicker, scattering yellow feathers about in a nearly perfect circle on the newly green spring lawn, spooling out the strings of impossibly long entrails with ease. Bright destruction is all about us. 3 crows alight one after another on the traffic light before us as we turn into Sunday morning services. And I'm sure it's an omen I cannot take lightly. Once you begin to see, Everything is riddled with meaning, and I cannot help myself from reading a wordless moral into the way a jet's wake separates the morning sky, how the flag flapping in a damp wind triggers a foreboding I felt when I watched you, massaging your chest above your heart with your right hand, so inconsequentially. When the saints come among us, we don't see them. When the saints come among us, they leave the scent of burning orange in the stairwell, or the ragged thread from some holy sleeve caught on a nail. They slip by like leaves, dropping unceremoniously, done with summer's hoopla. Their beauty goes undetected, like the rosy underbelly of mourning doves waddling the ground beneath the feeder. All we see is the soft gray-brown, surprised to catch a glimpse of pink dawn on the warm breasts, if we are lucky. When the saints come among us, there is no wind lifting the curtains over the sill, but when we look out, we are taken again by the purple mountains repeating themselves in the distance. When the saints come among us, the cry of the hawk punctuates our sleeping and our waking, calling us to all that is unnamed, but keener than a slim blade, piercing the only body we know. Okay. Okay, here's a prose poem. There are several prose poems in this book. I find it really ironic that I used to despise prose poetry. It's not poetry, it's prose, but now I write it. Okay, this is called After Death. After death, it occurs to me that I need to take a hard look at myself, a sort of accounting. It occurs to me that I'm easily distracted by a drop of water making its way down the pane, that I take everything too seriously or not seriously enough. It occurs to me that I feel guilty because I'm wasting time when every good minute should be spent writing or baking pies or sorting piles of mail. It occurs to me that something is very wrong with that. It occurs to me that I need to be a better person, that my students should be more vocal, that I lack some cool approach. And I really hope my husband knows I love him, because I'm trying to be a real person in a world where I find myself lacking every day. It occurs to me that I believed I would be a new, truer kind of woman after my mother died, with this new life stretching out across a prairie of waving grasses and endless sky. Instead, I am the heroine in a black and white foreign film where I get up every morning and make the coffee and take the turns through the day and go to bed where the nights are so long and I have to meet my sleepless self and I don't know where to put her or what to do about her. And here's a poem called Mother Wolf. Probably the rawest poem I've ever written. Mother Wolf. All my life, Mother, I have been falling out of your savage arms. Now, as you're dying, your ferocious embrace that nearly drowned me is loosing its grip, and blue sky peaks above with its quiet clouds moving. Did you know, Mother, I once shot you in a dream to wake horrified, how your good intentions nearly choked off my air until I could barely love the world tilting towards me with its green arms. Mother, you've made me wretched, never content with what I could do for you. Your boiling bitterness, your edict, don't trust anyone. And you didn't. You said, I love you. You said, I will haunt you when I die. You cursed, psha krev, dog's blood, and Polish. Get me out of here. Every night while you died, you were on a plane, a train, a carriage, a bus, and worried where you would get off. Not here, not yet. Every night I said I love you, and you let me go to sleep. You were so vulnerable. I began to see you human, and I could love you clearly, purely, without guilt, the backwash of never being right, never being enough. Like the wasp, you lost your sting. Your talons grew soft, your face tender, and I could see you uneasy, troubled, trying to leave this world, the only one you knew, for the next. I could say I love you and really mean it, as if I had dropped my skin because you were shedding yours, and you were much less and much more than you had ever been, your face clear and shining, bared humanity bereft of any needs or wants. And you went, Mother, one breath, then another, then nothing more to do here. I'll read one last one from this book, and then one new one, and that's it. This is called Biding. Right? We're all kind of waiting. I am waiting for everything in a still, quiet place, somewhere inside myself like the eye of a storm. I am waiting for something, a waterfall, when the stopper of sorrow is removed. Words like blood leaving the body or bodies leaving a house on fire. I am waiting for the green hands of spring to touch me with their vaporous opium, cascading blossoms. I am waiting for the enemy to charge on all their shiny, heaving horses. I can't help but admire. I am waiting for all the terrors to break me into what I've always meant to be, unstoppered, slinging up a storm of prophecies, ripped free, flying fast, no gravity, hollowed out and spit cleaned. And the last one, this is very new, but I've revised it. It's a strange poem. I don't know if you can see it. It's long lines divided by double slashes. I've never done that before, so I'm experimenting. It's called Loosening. Something we all need to do, right? Loosening. Coffee mug warm in my hands. Birds flutter back and forth to the feeder, lightening the morning. Squirrel, using its tail for an umbrella. Little white porcelain mouse from Carousel Antiques sits on the sideboard, reminds me of sojourns with my mother so long ago as she perused the lovely oldies owned by two charming men who always received us warmly. Me, little, but not too bored, always coming away with something pretty, carefully touching what took my eye. But Mother put her foot down at the ancient moose head glaring down at us from above. Sun peeks through the clouds. Someone wants to be my friend. The world on the radio laps at my door. War and lies and beached whales. Return to the birds, their vital small energy so engaging. All I need most days to get by. October pleases with its leafiness and early wood smoke. No, not thinking of snow, solemn, cold. My good friend is far away in Florida. Avocados in her yard. Palmetto bugs come inside. Mind leans back to the antique barn. My mother, young and energetic. Her laughter engaging with the two proprietors. Childhood came and went, and now life is real. Frost warning tonight. The little porcelain mouse reassures me. There was a child, a mother, a pleasant outing among old things. Still have the colored marbles in the little bag from that shop. Still have scars from what aged and bittered my mother. I spill out the swirled colors of blues and ruby, some clear or hazy. They ting and roll away, loosening the gravity of the day. Turn warm if you hold them. Scatter like birds, scatter like laughter. Still wonder whose hands played with those glass orbs, casting them in a game, maybe. Or just someone who loved to watch beauty scatter itself willy-nilly for no good reason. Thank you.
And here's another side of romance, I guess. The body falling in love. It was that old feeling again, you said. A spark the others didn't create with you, though the coupling was good. When the two of you made love, you couldn't get close enough. Felt like you wanted to crawl inside her in an effort to be closer. I recall that feeling and thought it had something to do with love, the being inside having little to do with sexual organs and all to do with warmth, moistness, skin, breath, and eyes, the windows in. Arms and legs embracing, not enough, never enough, closeness. Lying atop each other, the hearts do not line up, only when we spoon. It is the heart, spine, someplace inside us wanting to be enveloped by a womb. Warm, liquid salt crystals, total release of surface tension which holds together the boundaries of the body, dissolve into a primordial state of glowing goo. Every point tingling, swooning, sparks in the water. Not to have nor to be a mother or cling, but to be vulnerable, joined in a union of wholeness, so the body can attain what the heart desires. Afterwards is the holding of hands that becomes magnetic, pulsing with life. And those are from a chapbook, The Effort to Hold Light. Finishing Line Press. I started writing poems late. I got to a certain point where I thought, man, I want a chapbook. Everybody has chapbooks for sale. And I'm gonna be 50 soon. I need to get a chapbook. So Finishing Line Press printed that. And I'm gonna read a poem from this book, Until the Words Came, which Cheryl A. Rice and I put together based on a reading we did. 11 poems each, and we kind of alternated. And the book is printed by Post-Traumatic Press in the same order as our reading. And I'm going to read this poem because when I moved here back in the late 90s, I went to a couple of poetry readings. I was like, whoa, okay, I don't know if I'm good enough to go out here. But eventually I got up the nerve, and this is the very first poem I ever read. Born late. I fear words have become weak, tiresome, used, until they have holes, rounded corners, frayed edges. When written, they appear faded, barely audible when spoken, landing with a soft tick, hardly denting rice paper, easily swayed off course by the slightest breeze. When words were new, white-hot and heavy from the forge, they were rough with grit, edged with razor burrs, able to slice flesh, boil blood, crack stone. Hearts now churn these hollow vowel vessels with a watered-down, dishonest brew, ingredients no longer pure nor stirred with care, producing tasteless, colorless, flat spit on our lips. Let's create new letters, to build new words, save our tongues from indifference growing thick and slow in our thin, brittle skulls. Perhaps we'll evolve beyond words, thoughts and feelings expressed with inaudible, invisible energy, electric impulses fired from the brain, leaving our mouths only to chew, smile, kiss. Is it simply our ears? Have they become loose folds of flesh, no longer providing friction for proper stimulation, no longer understanding silence? Thank you. Yeah, that was it's 22 plus years ago now. And then I'm going to read a few poems from my full-length book, Second Innocence. Luchador Press came out right when COVID hit. So I had a big box of books sitting around. It was awesome. I know a lot of writers are in that same boat, so I'll read a few from this. I think this poem was like a finalist at the Hudson Valley Writer Guild contest a few years ago. Apples. I pack a fresh homegrown apple into my daughter's brown bag lunch. 6 weeks into high school, her mornings have more makeup, and the bus stop now at the end of the country lane. We rush to wait in the car, listen to music or the weather. Some mornings were foggy or grumpy or like today, silent. She's grown long legs, has the same large hazel eyes. Her hair is blonde and purple. She wears black boots. Backpack on shoulders, books held in folded arms, she glides onto the bus with ease. Mutsu apples, yellow-green with a rose blush, lie still under the trees in the brown grass of October. Dew sheen on their skin in the amber light of early morning. The ground will swallow these sweet globes, autumn's truth at the end of spring's promise. These trees bear fruit every other year, no choice but patience. The sun continues to glow, but the warmth has gone south, leaving a trail of gold which will fade to white and then gray long before school bells are silenced again for summer. The apple placed on the teacher's desk, fairy tale, left behind, when time was something we were busy learning how to keep. Oh, yes, Raphael mentioned ekphrastic poems, and I have a few of those in this book. This one is Seeing the Starry Night. This is not a fake, nor a smooth print which dazzles with enhancement, reproduction of size. It is perhaps the 1000th time I've seen this image, but it's not on a calendar, a coffee mug, a t-shirt, key fob, pillowcase, nor a color plate in a fine book. No, I turned the corner in the museum not knowing what to expect after the Bernard show, but I do not expect to come face to face with the Starry Night. I am at the Museum of Modern Art for the first time, and there are famous works of art. Could I have not foreseen this? This is not a starry night, it is the starry night. No, I cannot look. Quickly, I turn away before I see too much. I am not prepared for its existence after all these years. I run to another part of the museum and look at the floor. This is different. Yes, I know its face well, but not the energy of the actual texture of paint and brushstroke, a naked object on the wall. How many millions have stood there? How many billions have not? I will return, stand, and not fidget. I will breathe, and I will be awed. No, I do not know yet what I will be. It might disappoint severely. What moved past the cypresses of Saint Remy that night, I cannot know. Vincent van Gogh stood before a blank canvas. I stepped toward the unknown. Maybe I'm reading faster than I thought it was here. I'm going to read this one. I'm reading all these autumn ones out of here. Makes sense, I guess. Alfred Delphin Bresson, born 1894. Second generation French American, 30 years old, eats his breakfast of eggs fried in fat with a thick slab of bread before sunrise. corn harvested, the stalk stubble left in the field to hold snow's moisture on the plains where wind is constant. The lakes are beginning to freeze. The ducks have flown, but there is a field-dressed buck in the woodshed and a goose for Thanksgiving. He hears on the radio the discovery of another galaxy announced, Andromeda, confirming the Milky Way is not the only galaxy that exists in the deep sky. There may even be many galaxies full of stars like our own, so far away that only a 100-inch telescope 10,000 feet above the sea can confirm this. What does this mean for heaven, he wonders. He puts on his coat and steps outdoors in the last dark before dawn. Maybe there is only countless burning orbs of light. He pauses in the barnyard to look up and take in this discovery. The clink of the milk pail echoes in the silence. Horseless buggies everywhere, aeroplanes, telephones, electric wires being strung across the land, a wireless that can tune in Chicago, and now a giant spyglass that sees billions of stars spiraling in a distant place. Interesting, he thinks. Maybe that is heaven. The Great War is behind us. New York, Paris, London, I've seen those places, full of lights and people. Then he considers the life of a man on a mountaintop in California doing nothing but observing stars we cannot see. Alfred looks across the sky, horizon to horizon. There is a silver glow beginning in the east. There is peace, and the world is smaller than we thought. He smiles. The cows still need to be milked. He heads to the barn. Everybody has the stars, he thinks. I have the stars right here. All right, we have another reader, so I think I'll pass on that one. I'll read one more short one out of here. Astonishment. Only we can burn our own hearts at the proper temperature, a requirement of transgressions against our individual consciousness. Yet it is human nature to act against our will, our iron discipline, our firm personal beliefs, even when we know. There is a weakness not composed of character, but built into the flesh that desires sensation when face to face with aging and death. You know what? I'm gonna read one more out here. Just wow, that was kind of a bummer to end on here. It's not. I'll do that, and then I'm gonna actually read a couple of new ones. Bat dream. When you wake to find your arms covered in bats, do not panic. There may be 40 beady-eyed mammals with sharp teeth crawling under the sleeves of your nightshirt, but they have warm, fuzzy fur bodies. They've been watching you all your life, coming and going in your more or less unchanged routines. If they could, with their little suckling mouths, they would say, "It's a time for a change, that's all." So, rise from your bed. Hold your fear under your skin. Gently but quickly step outside. Raise your arms in the burgeoning dawn and let them go. Let them lift off, and if it's necessary, it's okay to give your arms a little shake, a little shimmy to get the last few bats out from under your sleeves. They'll be grateful. You'll be ready. Close your eyes then. You can hear the spirits whisper and sigh. Thank you. I figured out what a poet is the other day. It told me. It's somebody who sits around fiddling with their poems, and there's so many better things to be doing, including being with your loved ones or at least doing something productive. This is the newest poem I have. It's 2 weeks old. So the next time you hear it, it may be a little different. I don't know. It's a lullaby, I think. It's for Donald Lev. It's called Night Owl. I love to put the stars to bed like family. Usually in early morning, in the late dark when no clouds hover between the lights. At the zenith, the near future, stars of next month's primetime evening hours. The stars who've had all night in our sky edge the western horizon. I bid them a drowsy good night as they're off to rise again in the dusk of another east, where someone may or may not wonder about yesterday's dawn as he, she, they bid serenara to the sun. This close stars always setting and starting the day on opposite sides as we continue to spin, and I close my eyes to sleep. And then thank you again, everybody, for being here. And God, I actually kind of forgot that there's people online too, which is nice because usually I'm online people. Where do I focus here? So thanks for tuning in. This poem won the Littoral Press Broadside Prize. And I just got broadsides, and I have them here for sale if anybody's interested. It's called Raven. Great wing beats explode off the ground, up across the road into the mid-level leafless branches. I jump and slap my hands together. Worried he mistook my clap as a shoo, I croak a throated voice I've heard the blackbirds use in flight down the mountain swale of air. I want him to land, see I'm not a threat. They remember faces. I walk around the corner, see a fresh dead squirrel, and realize I've disturbed the raven's dinner. Sorry, I say aloud. He's already flown from sight. Lately, I'm saying sorry to all the dead animals I drive by, an apology prayer for the indignity of death's display. Early in spring, it's the squirrels who lead the roadkill. Last year, it was the chipmunks. This time, I only apologize to the raven. Thank you.
Guy Reed, everybody, man. Thank you, brother. You know, every now and then you're sitting here listening, or you're putting the schedule together of who's going to read, and you forget how just the night actually, if you get the right readers, the night just actually becomes its own organism, and it's really kind of cool. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And I also want to change my glasses so I don't screw up the introduction. Guy, thank you, man. I've only known our next featured reader for maybe 3 or 4 years, just before COVID, but it feels like we've known each other forever. Interdisciplinary artist, author, and cultural worker Stephanie J.T. Russell's most recent creative nonfiction book is One Flash of Lightning, a poetic treatment of the Samurai Code from Andrews McMeel. Her work has appeared in journals such as Xavier Review, the Winter Anthology, Lightwood, and at noted venues, including the New Museum, the Griffin Museum of Photography, and the Albright Knox, a visiting artist at New York University, the West Africa Network for Peace Building, and other institutions. Russell is the overall winner of the 2022 Wirral Poetry Festival UK Award. She is a trustee at the Emily Brunel Sculpture Garden and Park, and Historical Nature Sanctuary and Art Center in beautiful Boiseville, New York. BrunelPark.org. Always a pleasure. Stephanie Russell.
I'm going to start with something that goes so much against the grain of how I've come to write. And I want to get it out of the way because it's the day after the election. No matter what the law, 1973. Eyes pale and changeless as the tile wall ringing the gurney where you will lie the very next morning. Mama reaches for the forms, fingering the RN stud at her collar. Less mother than nurse, more mother than uppercase Catholic. You watch her ink out 15 in longhand to annotate your age, as if filling a dance card for some phantom debutante at the fancy end of town. You never bring it up after that, not even when a hemic propaganda film is force-fed at assembly to all 1,400 of us, avenging the tsunami of relief that swept through more than half the country just weeks before. No matter what the law says, Monsignor intones at the end, it is still a mortal sin. Barely making it to the lavatory, you run with me in tow as geysers of humiliation ride wordlessly up your throat and rain into the plumbing while I hold back your hair and hum like a nanny at nap time. I hold back your hair, waiting for the fit to pass, wondering at the dream we'd been in to have felt so wise and so free. Done in. Nothing much bigger than my fist survives very long in the astringent earth beneath the cedars we planted to buffer noise and shadow the grim summer heat. Defying their nursery labels, long blooming, acid loving, drought resistant, and incongruent alkalinities suggested by my neighbor, eggshells, dolomite dust, mats clawed from the hairbrush. The flowers die anyway, or adopt a pretense of dying, comfortable in their ridged, ropey hides. Their desiccations make it hard to unhear the swish of Havisham's gown, and from there, wondering how to dwell here if my husband is first to go. Will I end up done in by uncoupled lethargy, conversing only with snapdragons too lazy to fight for their own lives? I try to make up the difference for them, for us, but it's useless. No potion or silence can cool the weight of next year's sunlight or this year's uncertain bloom. Like every post, this was published in Bill Lantry's wonderful Peacock Journal. Bill's wife is now undergoing fairly severe chemotherapy, and I want to dedicate this to them and their long marriage and their gorgeous collaboration in life, like every post. Bent as the wind-bleached timber posting this belt of road, the old pair slow down by the eagle's nest they've passed every day since it and they were new, always relieved when winter bears the great geometry of birdcraft welded to the cottonwood a quarter mile into the field. The roost perseveres, cinctured in alfalfa, mown out to frozen dew. Nothing else remains of the time when ending's nearness did not circumscribe the contour of their hours. At this stage of the game, she wonders which of them will outlive the house paint laid on a week before the frost. No wing, no rustle, no flash of beak, but eagles play for keeps. Their irreproachable art persists, obstinate amalgam to the tree stem. She knows that nothing lasts, yet cannot yield when lasting goes so wrong. 50 years in, she still waits for marriage to reveal itself, feet banked like broken shale lining the creek bed, worn down to shards and built up again when the tide carries in its young. no means. This opens with an epigraph from Pema Chodron's Signs of Spiritual Progress. Kleshas are the strong, conflicting emotions that spin off and heighten when we get caught by aversion and attraction. No means. After what feels like lifetimes of digging, I've turned up no means to measure what we bear. Not the grief in bodies of one, delusion in whole peoples, torpor infiltrating the land. Still, I want to believe we are more than windowless silos designed for accumulation alone. Yet here we are, bursting to the rafters with stony, self-propagating kernels. And there's no genie at the spout end, conjuring our chaff into flour, no patient aproned auntie baking our blunders into manna for the yet unborn. This feast of sorrows, masterwork made in shadow, fuels its own burning. This burdened vessel, brimful of every latent distraction, will empty itself at last. I'm all kinds of fun, ain't I? This is a poem that I'm going to share with you from an unpublished chapbook of mine, Publisher's Alert, called Putting It Right. And this poem was blessed to receive the overall winner award at the, excuse me, the Wirral Poetry Festival competition in the United Kingdom. I just wanted to share that the people there were incredibly hip. And I flew over for like an in and out, 3 days of festival, hanging out with people, recapturing the habits of digestion and drinking that I had when I lived in Newcastle and in London. All artists should be treated the way that I was blessed to be treated there. This poem is called A Mercy. For homely, bookish girls like us, absence of mirrors at the convent exerted a mute relief. Back then, you'd still hear clicking with every vestal step. Waterfall chaplet of beads swaying in chasms of wool, ankles grazing the hem in authorities of seclusion. In our thick-lensed, stub-fingered probe of things imagined to come, the fierce veil of exile eclipsed all mysteries, even sheerest stocking in mother's sachet drawer. The nun's habit begs no scenic expedition of the flesh, no silvered expanse flinging back its claim on ego's vapor cavities. The old abbess, last of her kind, gathers mugwort with skirt hitched to the knee. She does not recall or care when she stopped seeing herself in the pond. Her contours, long dissolved in sheafs of color and line, are faceless as willow stems crowding the naked bank. If only the worst vanities were simple as lipsticked kisses on glass, or nunnish pride in unremembered desires. It's the self-cherishing glance within, secret broker of irreversible disarray, that skimmed me to this ruin. Any compact of forgiveness washes away, even as I retrace the 100,000th step, dumb as a bullock grinding salt into contrition. I grind on, knowing there's no grace in reversal. I grind on, till the groove of my tread is not merely erased, till the shape of my foot is worn back to its origin, steep, bony hoof, mired to the haunches in mugwort reed. This is a poem that I wrote a few years ago when reflecting on my first teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche. Everybody in here knows what Rinpoche is, right? Tibetan Buddhism being so ubiquitous. I'll explain it anyway very briefly. It's sort of like below the Dalai Lama, there are Rinpoches. And then we get into all of the different layers of the hierarchy. But it's kind of a big deal, and he was a big deal. Brilliant man, highly lucid across the spectrum of his amazing accumulation of spiritual and intellectual and emotional knowledge. It's called Drinking with the Rinpoche. Though it's possible he never uttered it aloud, you knew that Trungpa liked the word neat for whiskey. You could almost hear the undiluted vocable thrumming his eardrum with every silent sip. Don't lament the broken samayas scattered around his slippered feet. Pity more the empty glass that teetered from his hand as he nodded off in a dining room chair halfway through breakfast, while everyone kept chattering as if he'd asked for the condiment tray. Please pass the salt. I am dying. Rinpoche's eyes slid open, meeting mine as I leaned down to pick up his fork. Near the end, he sighed, you'll see. Our universal bond of affliction is not disappointment, it's expectation. Cruel camel pack of ambition, hoisted onto the frailest of spines. It's useless. Go outside, watch the grasses hurl their names into the dusk. They know it's useless too. That's why they are so happy. Have a whiskey. You'll be a new man for a minute or two. It'll feel longer, much longer, the further you run from your wish. Run, I tell you, and don't look back. Eventually, the wish will get tired and sit down, watching you disappear. I'm going to do something I really hate. Mike, do I still have a little time? I'm going to use this because old age prevented me from remembering to bring the second stack of poems that I had. You know how it is, half of you in this audience. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me for a moment while I go back into this thing and figure it out. Oh, Lord. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is really hard. Okay, here we go. I should have also brought my glasses, shouldn't I? Okay. Now I have to write it in. You're being so patient, and I'm so grateful. And I feel like such an idiot. Okay, so the poem I read, A Mercy, was from this chapbook that I have yet to manage to get published, but I like it. And in its primary narrative underpinning, it hints at the story of a breakdown of a family through the breakdown of a marriage and the death of a matriarch. But it goes through a lot of phases that are connected with forgiveness, with grief and regret, and essential reflection on what we miss along the way. So I'm going to read to you from part 2. This is the beginning poem in part 2 of this chapbook, and it is eponymously titled after the book title, Putting It Right. 1. This is heft, this is valise. Thinned out goods and last favored keepsake, hauled down dim-lit flights. This is flight. This is flight. This flight is no box, no bag, no giveaway, takeaway, no old key, new key, nor borrowed key. This is blue, blue loss, ventured and gained. This loss, ventured and gained, is never ending. But done, done. This is done. This bone box job is never done, is always open, even if locked, always locked when open. You open, open, and always know when you're not. This is not this past nor other past to come. This is the only room till you leave it, no other place till you're in it. Even then, old room comes with you into the new. As long as it remains room within room, there is no new. There is no putting it right as you watch the time pass. Fast decay, things we come to know too late. This is passing's unattended velocity till hindsight ushers you breathless, shaking into the noble dark where nothing's visible but you. Your eyes need only adjust. The trouble is, you think you have time. 2. You come here to put it right. There is nothing freer than working unseen, barehanded, naked in forest shade. The work goes on as it always has, long before you began to know it's all you've ever done. 3. Chest deep in the river, a man moves boulders twice his size. In the open span of his fingers, the great stones glide clean across the rushing grade, arm's length from his heart. Young trout kiss his ankles. The sun has its way with his skin. At some point, he understands the work that must be done is always revealed when he least expects to see it. The woman watches from higher up the grade. He knows she is there, but nothing needs be said. His concentration is at once smooth and intense. The wordless air speaks aloud for them both. Beg your pardon. The wordless air speaks aloud for them both. She cannot now remember at what point she steps out of clothes and slips into water. Together they work with no end in mind, relearning the old sacred dance in surrender. 4. You come here to put it right, but the ending mutates even as the story goes unchanged. There is no one name for forgiveness and fault fused into thanks and love, as if each is trying to know or become the other. A great many people are constantly coming to life in me. 5. Turn this way, and here's the covey that caught you in its web, made you one of them, then sent you out in the rain. There you stand, ticketless in wonder, watching the station master trudge home to his warm, uninterrupted dream. 7. What could we be to each other, revealing the atlas hidden in our veins? 10. One night we heard a small bell by the river. A coppery fish arched moonward on the bank. A woman rose up, incanting, opened a sweeping arc with perfect extended arms, then sank back into the grasses. The smooth, dark shape of a man held near, haloed in platinum light. A tiny shard of paper sizzled into flame at his fingertips, then disappeared into the river, its hasty flare igniting his stilled features, plucking his imprint from the trees. We turned away as something roared by on the highway. Turning again, we saw the fish, pinioned by moonbeam to the bank, eye pointed in air under the bell's tarrying echo. Dead, it saw, heard, remembered the note, sang it through fin and scale, through rock, sod, and sand, to the river, translating the fisher's entreaty to the ears of its silent, responsive kin. In that instant, the river she was summoned to our feet, spiriting Virginia muskies round to paper torch and bell, the reassuring signals of fire and song. It was autumn and almost too late, but the ceremony turned the tides within us toward home. 12. This trek has taken a lifetime. We begin from fire and end in the river, and we are so strong. We pass through extremity. It sears back through us, heat tempering the marrow for permanent candescence. None of us has done this so long for nothing. 13. None of us does this for nothing. If we fail this time, there's always a next, and so it goes till there's no next to be had. 14. I've heard of people who see whole geotic worlds in a scrawl of baffling integers, pattern recognition. But grist, the spinner's way, is a reckoning I can understand. Weight measured out in lengths, a question of practice and time. Even then, I know what it is to be deceived by old rubrics scored with eyes open wide. Since I finally learned to pay attention, what I see in each beginning is an ending in itself. All along, the signs are there, busy as a Sibyl's hand, suturing decisions into whole cloth inevitability, piece by jagged piece. If you read with care, the finale of any book reveals itself in the very first line. Don't wait for the day when you can pass a haunted doorway without catching your breath, or till a thing you see is just the thing alone, uninhabited by one you no longer are. How do you see yourself in 5 years? I asked. I am just standing there, he said. The reply, lost in a blur of sound and motion, proves we cannot fit each other's footprints of healing. But my mother's mother taught me all medicines come from the same root that brings everything into being. Her silences drew me into endless migration, hunting parentage without a name or burden of past affliction. Perhaps this is why we cannot help but seek glimpses of ourselves in each other. We might never receive the gaze we think we want, short run notwithstanding. Only hindsight recognizes the food that grew the spine of our hiddenmost self. In grandmother's garden, follicles of ancient injury are released, replenishing the land. 18. The brisk work of late season decay lightens me enough to be gathered from this world for good. Come, sit near the moonflower web, wrangling the porch rail like a courtship gone to seed. The only thing now certain is that a fresh ghost will darken the door when the old ones have forgotten their way back to us. So turn a palm to the heat and remember, some stars will never reach us with their light. Dispersed beyond imagining, stronger lines incarnate between us the further we draw apart. Honest as breast milk in a mouth, straining to purse its lips and eat. Thank you.
Stephanie Russell, Guy Reed, Rayfield Kosek, Ruth Danon. I want to thank you all. Give yourselves being here, being live. Masks, no masks anymore.